Hey, welcome to 1500ESPN.com. I'm Derek Wetmore. This is Andrew Kramer. We just got done at Winter Park on a Tuesday, having to record the video a little bit early this week because the Vikings have a short week to get ready for the Packers, where they'll be Thursday night at Lambeau Field. Andrew, tough test for the Vikings coming up. We'll talk in this video about Teddy Bridgewater's status, whether or not we think he'll play. We're also going to talk about the Packers' defense, which has struggled, and how the Vikings could maybe take advantage of that. And finally, we'll get to the injury report. Any concerns that the Vikings have going into this matchup. First of all, with Teddy, didn't practice again Tuesday. He was listed as a non-participant on the team's injury report with that left ankle sprain. What's your sense of how far along he is and how ready he would be to play Thursday?
Yeah, well, with the left ankle sprain, the big thing is obviously you want to stay off of it with any kind of sprains. And so he hasn't practiced at all the past few days. I'm sure he's getting some work done inside. Mike Zimmer said today he wanted to see what he could do just in terms of running. But Christian Ponder has taken all the first-team reps so far, Monday and Tuesday. We talked to him today. He's preparing like he's going to be the starter. So he could get his first start since December 1st of last year, his 36th with the Vikings, if Teddy Bridgewater goes out there tomorrow, which will be the team's final walkthrough before Thursday's game, and decides he can't go. So really it's going to be decided internally tomorrow. They could put a questionable label on him, and we may not know until Thursday or really game time, but they'll have to see tomorrow how he's feeling. But this was our last open media availability today, and we did not see Bridgewater on the field.
That's right. Generally with a sprain, to put my armchair doctor hat on for a second, they ask that you rest it, put ice on it, use some kind of form of compression, and then also to elevate it. So I'm sure he's been doing all of those things with team trainer Eric Sugarman and his staff. Bridgewater joked this morning that he's getting to know that staff pretty well, because that's really all he's been able to do this week is rehab. As soon as the MRI cleared him and said no structural damage, he's just trying to get it ready for Thursday. I'm leaning towards that Bridgewater would play, Andrew, but that's not based off anything. That's just kind of a gut feel right now.
I would be surprised as well, just because I saw him walk around today in the locker room. I mean, you saw him go up to the podium. He did not need crutches. He's not in a boot. He doesn't seem to be favoring that left ankle too much.
If he is, it's just a little bit, yeah.
But the concern is going in is that this team is preparing for poor footing at Lambeau Field. It's supposed to be a wet, somewhat cold night on Thursday. And that doesn't spell well for a quarterback who likes to move around, and especially if he has any kind of ankle injury, could exacerbate that, make that worse at all if he were to go out there and play.
Yeah.
So team's got to be wary of the footing, obviously. So we'll see. Christian Ponder's going to have to be at the ready regardless.
That's right. And not to mention, too, would be Bridgewater's just second start of his NFL career. So it's not like he's a veteran. But a lot of things go into this. It'll be very interesting to see if he plays. I know probably gamblers staying away from this game for right now because of the uncertainty at quarterback for the Vikings. The Packers, though, one thing is certain. They don't have a great defense. They're struggling this season, and that was true in Week 4 as well against the Chicago Bears, who racked up 496 yards of total offense against Green Bay's defensive unit. Pretty impressive day for Chicago, of course, but the flip side of that coin is that Green Bay just couldn't stop them all day, specifically in the run. Andrew, what have you seen from the Packers defense this year that the Vikings might be able to exploit on Thursday night?
Well, since B.J. Raji got hurt, they had to start LaTroy Guion at nose tackle, and Vikings fans and people that have covered the Vikings know LaTroy pretty well. He was a guy that signed a 3-year, $20-some million deal with the Vikings back not too long ago and ended up getting let go. So there's a reason for that. The Packers were hurting for D linemen and are starting LaTroy Guion. So I think that kind of contributes to that. He wasn't that great against the run here in Minnesota. Just watching a little bit of Packer film, he isn't that great over there either. He's a guy that's able to get through the line and get in position, but he can never finish and make a tackle. So that's kind of a big deal with them. But mainly their starting line in general, you've had Clay Matthews battling injuries. You've had Julius Peppers, who's aging and just isn't that effective anymore. So you've got a line that really, to me, hasn't been able to put it all together and be stout against the run. Now, obviously, against the Bears team, Matt Forte, I mean, they're going to be pretty good at running the football, especially because they propose the downfield threat with guys like Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. So the Vikings don't necessarily pose that kind of threat, but they did run for 241 yards against the Atlanta Falcons. They were able to part the Red Sea for Jerick McKinnon and Matt Asiata on a few of those runs, and they should be able to get some of those opportunities at Lambeau Field on Thursday, because as you pointed out, Green Bay all year has not been good against the run.
Well, and we knocked on the Vikings offensive line for the first weeks 2 and week 3. So it should be pointed out that they had a pretty good game in week 4. Part of that, I asked North Turner about that dynamic. Part of it is Teddy Bridgewater is just better at escaping pressure, and he can kind of make the offensive line look better. But even in run blocking, Andrew, they had a really good game against the Atlanta Falcons, and something that we weren't necessarily expecting after having lost their starting right guard, Brandon Fusco, for the year. Even if they don't have a Matt Forte in the backfield, it seems like a good spot for the Vikings to take advantage of the Packers.
It is. There's not really any big bodies you need to worry about moving out of that interior. The same with the Falcons. So you should expect the offensive line to perform just as well. Obviously, they have a few extra pass rushers there with Clay Matthews, and Julius Pepperson can still use his reach to get after the quarterback. Yeah. So they pose a different threat there. But outside of that, should be a somewhat easy test going in.
Sure, for the offense anyways. Yeah. The other side of the ball can be very different. In fact, that's where one of the key injuries, aside from Bridgewater, who are you looking at on defense is really kind of stands out on the injury report that the Vikings should be worried about?
Well, not necessarily worried about, but you want to know if Chad Greenway can go. Obviously, you want him to be fully healthy before he gets back out there with a broken rib. I think he might need a little more than a week and a half to heal from that one. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Gerald Hodges get his second start for the Minnesota Vikings at linebacker. He was pretty good last week just in terms of defending the run and reading the pass. So he didn't look like a raw guy at all. He's in his second year, 4th-round pick. So they should feel somewhat better about keeping him in there. It's not a huge liability. But if you put Chad Greenway back there before he's ready, you saw in the New Orleans game how he could be a liability. He already has a broken left wrist with a broken rib at linebacker. Not a real advantageous spot to be at.
And the theme from all the defensive players today and head coach Mike Zimmer was to keep Aaron Rodgers in the pocket. When he escapes the pocket, he can be the most dangerous quarterback in the league, as he's shown time in, time out. That'll do it for this video, but if you want to check out more on the Vikings-Packers matchup, we'll have a Purple Podcast posted. Just go up to the show page at the top, drag down to Purple Podcast, and you'll have all our archived episodes there, including the one that we're about to sit down and record right now, previewing the Vikings-Packers matchup for Thursday night. For Andrew Kramer, I'm Derek Wetmore. Thanks for watching this video. We'll catch you on the podcast.